On paper, the Google Pixel 5 is not a spec-heavy phone. In fact, a lot of tech enthusiasts might look at it and think it's a bit of a stinker. A prime example being this 1080p front camera that is only capable of 30 frames per second. But after using this phone for a month, I think I was wrong about it. This phone really has a charm and a simplicity that many Android phones struggle with. So let's start with some of those underwhelming specs and why they might not be as important as you think. The first thing is the elephant in the room, which is that Snapdragon 765 chip. It's a mid-range Android chip, not quite the top range. It's still 5G, but it does have its limitations. But when you actually put this phone side by side with similar phones with more powerful chips, there's actually not that much difference in things like opening apps. This is the phone against the Exynos version of the Samsung S20, and it holds up and even sometimes trumps the S20. And this is the Pixel 5 opening apps at the same time as the iPhone 12, which by the way has the most powerful phone processor available right now. And the Pixel doesn't even have the most powerful Android processor, but it still holds up relatively well. The difference is definitely noticeable here, but it's not as noticeable as you might have thought. The limitations do start to manifest themselves in some areas though, and one of those areas is the camera. Where shots like portrait shots and night shots take a little bit more processing power, you do end up waiting for them to process for a couple of seconds. And this for me was a bit of a bigger limitation, just because I'm used to just snapping away and then viewing the photos afterwards, whereas you do have to wait for a couple of seconds to view them. This was definitely a low point for me, but it's kind of to be expected with the downgrade in processor. And talking about that camera, on paper, the spec is kind of standard. 12.2 megapixels main camera, which is the one I'm filming with now. f1.7 aperture. It isn't the leading spec, but it's kind of what you come to expect for a phone of this price. The problem with this camera is it's now a few years old. It's the same camera used on the Google Pixel 2. So just how long can they drag out this hardware while trying to make the software match up to it? But before you write it off because of this, 99% of the time the camera is still top level in terms of sharpness, dynamic range and colours. The problem is that it does start to show its limitations in some settings, like the noise and the shadows of this video, or the fringing still present in this backlit photo. Keep in mind that these are quite harsh conditions, but top of the line phone cameras just don't have these issues anymore. The night mode is still excellent as always on Pixel phones, however they've definitely put a little bit of extra effort into the video modes this time, in particular the stabilisation, which I really love on this phone. It's very interesting. There's a few different stabilisation modes which I'll go into now. Okay, so this is me walking towards this building with the standard stabilisation on, and on the phone screen now it looks pretty decent here. And this is another video of the same thing, but with the active stabilisation on. So we'll see if this makes any difference to the normal stabilisation. It also has this crazy locked mode, which essentially zooms in 2 times and uses the extra space to keep the phone dead steady, so almost like a tripod. You do have to start recording, but as you see, once I do start recording there, it will keep exactly the same thing in frame, almost as if I'm using a tripod, even when I'm moving the phone around like this. Obviously, if you do move it too much, it will start to move, but it does try and lock on as much as it can. So the great video quality that lacks in some areas and that amazing stabilisation just makes me think that if they did use an up-to-date camera module, they could have made this phone one of the best for taking photos and videos. It still definitely holds up, and don't get me wrong, Google Pixel's software definitely makes the old hardware look like a $1,000 phone in 2020. But there are definitely some hardware limitations still. I think the biggest limitation with the camera module for me was that ultra-wide camera isn't quite ultra-wide. It's not as wide as other phones you see like the Samsung S20 ultra-wide or the iPhone 12 ultra-wide. But the trade-off is that it's actually been sharper for me than either of the others. I never really thought I'd get on with stock Android. Being a Samsung user, I'm used to having lots of customization options and lots of different ways of doing things. However, using stock Android for a bit on the Google Pixel 5 is different. It offers a bit of simplicity and fluidity, and some of these little features really do make you smile as you're using the phone. For example, with a little weather icon on the always on display and the now playing section at the bottom of the always on display, so that when the phone hears a song playing nearby, no matter how quiet, it will tell you what the song name is and what the artist is at the bottom. And it happens so casually you won't even notice until you look over and realise that someone's playing music somewhere. And also the digital wellbeing features, which are not unpopular on phones these days, but I did notice that after a few days it tracked how long I'd slept for and when I sleep, and it asked me if I wanted to put the phone into do not disturb mode while this happened. Just these little features, these little tiny things that make your phone really personal to you. I really do like these things. And then there's the Google Home features where all you have to do is hold down the power button and I can control my Philips Hue lights from there. It saves me putting a widget on the main screen and is really simple and easy to use. I could go on about these stock Android features or these Google Pixel software features that make it fluid and easy to use, but what I think the best way to describe it is it's the closest to the iPhone experience you can get on an Android phone. Other small details like that fairly bright and very sharp 90Hz OLED screen, that matte finish on the back, which honestly I think should be in all phones because it's great, and just the fact that the phone is smaller and lighter than those usual big slabs that we're used to these days in 2020. But all this said, who should buy this phone? If you're looking for the fastest phone on the market at this price range, there's definitely better options, like the S20 Fan Edition or the OnePlus 8T. And if you're looking for the best camera, then my tests, which I'll be releasing soon, prove that the iPhone 12 is probably a better camera in most ways, and even the iPhone 11 Pro trumps the Pixel in some ways. But if you're a fan of Android, or you're coming over from an older iPhone and you want the most refined Android experience, or an Android experience that best relates to the iOS experience, then this might be the phone for you. Or if you're in the market for a phone that represents value, a flagship phone that's not quite that flagship price, I don't think you're really giving up much here with the Google Pixel 5. If you're someone that's been using flagships like the S10 or the Huawei P30 Pro or the OnePlus 8, but maybe this year you don't have the budget for a high level flagship, then this is the phone that best represents that kind of value point. Okay, so the hardware's not perfect on this phone, but the software definitely makes up for it and ensures that the Google Pixel brand is still leading the way in terms of the Android experience. It's just simple, it's fluid, and it has that charm to it that makes this phone one of the best phones in the price point. So that's it from me. I hope you've enjoyed this video, found it informative. If you have, then hit that thumbs up button. And if you want to see more videos like this, including the Pixel 5 versus iPhone 12 comparison I've got coming out, then hit that subscribe button. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.